Hi guys, welcome back to Michelle After Dark. If you are new, welcome. Before we get into today's story, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe. I also have a vlog channel called The Shellbell Life. Link will always be in the description box below. If vlogs are not your thing, then I thank you for being here. Here's another story that had a good ending, so to speak, but a not so good beginning, especially for 17-year-old Lisa Mcvey. In 1984, Lisa was abducted and assaulted for 26 hours before she was able to get away from her captor. So when I say assaulted, you guys read between the lines because this channel is not monetized yet. We are on the road to being monetized. I want to get in the habit of omitting certain words that YouTube will flag because they will demonetize your video in a minute and keep it moving. So when I say assaulted, you know what I mean. She was forced to do things with him for 26 hours. He was a serial killer. His name was Bobby Joe Long. In 12 days, y'all, she managed to do what the cops could not do in 10 months of looking for him. Before we get into the abduction, let's talk about Robert Joseph Long, which we know as Bobby Joe Long. He was born October 14, 1953 to Joe and Louetta Long in Kenovia, West Virginia. Probably not saying that right. He was born with an extra X chromosome, which is a variant of the Klinefelter syndrome. And I'm probably not saying that right either. I'm bad with names and words like that, y'all. I just am. This condition causes excess estrogen production. So being born with this chromosome, he began to develop breast. And he was actually treated for this as a child because we all know little kids can be punks. They just can. I'm sorry. We know how kids are. He did have a breast reduction surgery in his teens. He also suffered multiple head injuries as a child. And as an adult, he got into a major motorcycle accident, which we know people who have had hits to the head are more likely to become violent. It has been proven, not all, but football players and boxers and anyone that has head injury are more prone to violent tendencies. That has been proven. So he also had a dysfunctional relationship with his mom. His parents divorced and he lived with his mother. They lived in a small apartment, only one bedroom, and they shared a bed. He hated his mom. She was a bartender. She worked late at night and she would always bring someone home. She would wear revealing clothing around him and she would entertain these men in their shared bedroom and he would hear everything that was going on. In 1974, Bobby married his high school girlfriend and they had 2 children. The 2 divorced in 1980. There's an interview with his ex-wife called Married to a Monster, the ex-wife of Bobby Joe Long. I'm not going to focus on the details of her time with him because this video can get very, very lengthy because like I said, he was a serial killer. Even though each and every one of his victims, living or dead, should have their stories told, so no disrespect to their families, but we're focusing on one particular victim today, which she's actually a survivor. But he did put his ex-wife through the ringer. He did become very violent and abusive to her, and I'm pretty sure that's why they divorced. So it's not known exactly when all of this started, but Bobby committed at least 50 assaults on women in the Florida area. But what they do know is around 1981, he began contacting women through the Penny Saver, which was a free weekly paper. I remember the Penny Saver when I was a little girl. I don't even think they have the Penny Saver anymore. But anyway, he started contacting women through there, and that's how he would meet up with them and assault them. So they also gave him the name of the classified ad, you know what. So Bobby moved to the Tampa Bay area around 1983, and in 1984 is when police started to find bodies with the same evidence on them. And so like I said, every victim deserves to have their own individual story told. So I'm not going to go into each and every one of them, but I will tell you the names of his known victims. Artist Ann Wick, 20, killed on March 27, 1984. Nguyen Tai Long, she was 19, killed on May 13, 1984. Michelle Denise Sims, 22, killed on May 27, 1984. Linda Nuttall, she was assaulted in May of 1984 but survived. Elizabeth Ludenbach, 22, killed on June 8, 1984. Vicki Marie Elliott, 21, killed on September 7th, 1984. Chanel Devon Williams, 18, killed on October 7th, 1984. And actually a thing about Chanel is they didn't put her with the other victims in the same category because they thought that a serial killer doesn't change their MO. they stick with the same race, the same way the person looks. So they actually did not think in the beginning that she was part of his people that he killed, but they later found out that she was. Karen Beth Disfrin, 28, killed on October 14th, 1984. Kimberly Kyle Hops, 22, killed on October 31st, 1984. Lisa Mcvey, she was 17, assaulted on November 3rd and 4th, 1984. She's a survivor that we are going to be talking about today. Virginia Lee Johnson, 18, killed on November 6, 1984. Kim Marie Swan, killed on November 11, 1984. So those were his known victims. So during this time span of 8 months, Bobby abducted, assaulted, and murdered at least 10 women in 3 different counties in the Tampa Bay area. Most of them were sex workers. And like I said, we're not going to get into the individual murders, but when the police found them, they were found bound with bruises and obvious signs of assault, and red carpet fibers were found on their bodies. Now let's talk about Lisa Mcvey. Y'all, this girl was a smart whippersnapper. Smart. And we're going to get into that in a minute, but Lisa was born in March of 1967. She didn't have a good beginning. At around the age 2, abuse began. Her family was poor, and she was living with her single mother who was suffering from drug and alcohol addiction. She was in the foster care system, bouncing around from home to home, and about the age 14, she was placed in her grandmother's home, which you would think, hey, I'm here with grandma. She's going to receive the love and affection that she didn't get at home, which I am a grandmother. Yes, I am. I'm a grandmother, you guys, and I cannot imagine. So her grandmother had a boyfriend, and this boyfriend would go into Lisa's room every night, put a gun to her head, and assault her. This went on for 3 years. She was also forced to call him dad, which when I started researching the story and diving in, I got so angry. Because as a mother, you're supposed to protect your children and keep them out of harm's way. Okay, her mother wasn't able to do that. For sure, the grandmother would be able to keep her out of harm's way, right? So time goes on. Lisa is 17. She's in high school. She's also working at a Krispy Kreme donut shop. So because Lisa's life was one bad situation after another, this poor kid couldn't catch a break. On November 2nd, 1984, Lisa wrote a note. She had planned on unaliving herself the next day. So then on November 3rd, 1984, that was the day she had planned on doing it. She rode her bike to and from work, right? And she worked the double shift that night. She closed up, got on her bike. It was around 2 a.m., which I wouldn't want my 25-year-old daughter out on a bike at 2 a.m., let alone my 17-year-old. But as we know, her family was not the most loving or caring. Anyway, she was riding home from work with plans to unalive herself, but she never made it home. Her bike was found halfway to her house with her things scattered around her, including her purse and some Krispy Kreme donuts she was bringing home that night. So Lisa's now missing. She's on the news and the search begins, but nothing for 2 days. It was like she just vanished out of thin air. So then 2 days later, she walks back into her grandmother's house where she told them she had been kidnapped. But instead of believing her and calling the police immediately, her grandmother's boyfriend began to beat her for hours. And this continued until the grandmother finally called the police once they seen that her story was not changing. I just can't. So she then told the police about the horrific ordeal she endured for 26 hours. And what she told them would lead to the arrest of the serial killer they were looking for. So this is what happened. On November 3rd, she was riding her bike home after her shift. She rode by a church and she remembers seeing a car parked in the parking lot. She noticed it was a maroon car with the driver's side tire reversed. She was halfway home when she was violently knocked off her bike. A gun pointed to her head and she heard it click. Now, this didn't scare her as much as it should have because of what her grandmother's boyfriend was doing to her. So her attacker dragged her into his car and she noticed a huge hunting knife. Now, this girl's ability to remember certain details is amazing. I don't know if I'd be the same way, probably not, but I could even tell you what I wore yesterday or what I had for dinner sometimes. So her memory was amazing. So with the gun pointed at her, she was forced to strip and perform a certain act on him. And he told her, if you did everything you're told, I won't kill you. So she did. She did everything she was told to do. So he then tied her up and blindfolded her. Now, this was the moment Lisa realized she wanted to live. She was going to make it. So she went into full survivor mode. So he put the blindfold on her and she clenched or did something to make her face appear bigger. So that way when she relaxed, it was loose. So she was actually able to see out of her blindfold. Would I have been able to think about that in that kind of a situation, which I hope I'm never in? But no, I doubt it. She was also a fan of crime shows. And she knew she needed to leave evidence behind, but also to remember as many details as possible. She's 17, y'all. So that's what she did as he drove away. She seen the streets they were on. She seen the interstate. She said the car sounded like it was knocking, like it was time for an oil change. And she seen a green light on the dash. It had a leather steering wheel, and she seen the word Magnum on the inside of the car. When she looked down, she seen that there was red carpet under her feet. Red carpet fibers that they found in the bodies. Y'all, I'm still amazed at the incredible memory of this 17-year-old. So then at this point, the car got off of the interstate and she thought, okay, this is where I'm going to die. He told her to get dressed and get out of the car. They went to a building. She counted 19 steps up to the second floor. When he opened the door to his apartment and turned on the lights, she seen that he was Caucasian and that he was left-handed and that the apartment had green flooring. She was dragged into the bathroom where he took off the blindfold, but he told her to keep her eyes closed. And then he bathed her. So she asked him why was he doing this to her, and he said he had been through a bad breakup. And not to worry, she wasn't the only one. So over the next 26 hours, Lisa was repeatedly assaulted. And the next day, he gave her food. She was afraid to eat it because she thought he was trying to poison her. And at this time, they were both in front of the TV and she had her blindfold on. That's when she seen news reports or heard the news reports that they were out looking for her. And y'all, this is how you could tell he was sick. This dude was eating with her in front of the TV like they were just a couple having an evening at home and watching TV. So the news came on and she heard about her abduction. So at this point she told him she needed to go to the bathroom, but that she couldn't go with him watching her. She started leaving her fingerprints everywhere once she got in the bathroom and remembering every detail as she could. But she put her fingerprints on the walls, on the tub, on the toilet, the mirror. And then when she came out of the bathroom, when she was done, she was assaulted again. He would fall asleep here and there, and they were in the bed, but she didn't dare move because she didn't know if he was faking sleep or not. And he woke up in a panic, wondering what he was going to do with her. She then offered to be his girlfriend. She used reverse psychology on him, y'all, and it worked. She told him that she knew he was doing this to get back at an ex-girlfriend that he didn't like, but then he told her that he couldn't keep her. She then told him that she had a sick father at home and that if something happened to her, no one would be around to care for him. And good thing she said father and not mother, because this guy clearly has zero respect for women. So he told her to get dressed. They got back in the car and she thought, okay, here's where I die. Now he's going to kill me. They stopped at a gas station and then at a bank. She remembered everything he had on and that he had dark hair. So he asked her where she lived and he took her somewhere close to her house, but not exactly to her house. He told her, I'm sorry for what I put you through, hugged her, got out, went around to the passenger side and let her out. He then told her to wait 5 minutes and that he would let her live. He then drove off. She took off her blindfold after he drove off, and she looked up and she saw this beautiful oak tree. And at that point, she knew she was going to live and that her life would change forever. She started to run. She was afraid he was going to return. She got to her grandmother's house only to be welcomed with a beating. So now we're back to her talking to the police. They are in awe at how much information this girl remembered. She was even able to give details to a sketch artist. Before he let her go, he had told her to make sure you tell the police that I was a black man. We ain't gonna get into that, but y'all know what I'm thinking. So the police were on the lookout for a maroon or red Dodge Magnum. And of course they took all the clothes that she was wearing to be processed and whatnot. So after they get all the information from her, they send her back home and she's at home watching the news and it's about a girl being found. And because of the details, she knew in her heart, she knew that her abductor and the serial killer were one and the same. She immediately contacted the police. This is what they had been thinking as well. She had survived a serial killer, y'all. The investigators tested the fibers from Lisa's abduction to the previous murders, and lo and behold, it was a match. So with the make and model of the car, they stopped cars matching this description. And then they thought, hey, he stopped at an ATM machine. Let's go in, get the camera footage, and see what we can come up with. And then the police catch a break. There's only one name on that list with the make and model of the car that they were looking for, and it belonged to Bobby Joe Long. Now, a surveillance operation began, and when they felt like they had enough evidence, on November 16th, 1984, Bobby was coming out of the movie theaters and he was arrested. Oh, let me back up a little. So when they were watching him before they arrest him, they pulled him over in his car, made up a story about a robber in the area, and he matches the description of the person who robbed, I don't know, a house or whatever they said. The officers wanted to take a picture of him so they can rule him out. He agreed. They showed this picture along with other pictures to Lisa, and she picked him out right away. She went straight to him. So they arrested him. He pled guilty to his crimes against Lisa and to an additional 8 counts of first-degree murder, 8 counts of kidnapping, 7 counts of sexual battery. He received a life sentence on every count, and he was given the death penalty. Okay, side note. This may rub some of y'all the wrong way, and don't come for me in the comments because this is just my opinion, mine alone. You are entitled to your opinion as well, and you probably know where I'm going with this, but I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't. Don't come for me. Don't get me wrong, he should be punished and put under the jailhouse for what he did. Don't get me wrong. So he should be punished. And you may say it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars keeping this horrible person alive. And if this happened to you, you would want, or someone you love, you would want that person gone and not alive anymore. I get it. I get that. But I also look at it from a biblical point of view. And if you don't believe this way, fine. Let's just agree to disagree. The Bible says thou shalt not kill. The Bible does not say thou shalt not kill, but if you are the government, it's okay. Murder is wrong no matter who is doing the killing. That's my take on it. Don't try to change my mind. That's how I feel. That's simply my opinion. So y'all, Lisa went on to law enforcement. No surprise there. Her memory was outstanding. She put herself through the police academy and she was deputized in 2004. She now works in the same department that found and arrested her captor. She's specializing in sex crimes and working to protect children. She also works as a middle school resource officer to teach students how to handle potentially dangerous situations and make them aware of her story. She also said, and I quote, "I wasn't going to allow anyone to hurt me again. And the only way I know how to do that was to get into law enforcement. My empowerment comes from being so helpless and lost. That feeling I had when I was 17, I'm not lost anymore. I am on top of my mountain and it feels good." End quote. Now, this doesn't mean she's had an easy road to get to the top of her mountain. She still has nightmares, but she says she's happy for what happened to her because in the end, it saved her life. Remember, she was going to unalive herself that night. So 34 years after his arrest, on May 23rd, 2019, Robert Joe Long was given his last meal of roast beef, bacon and fries, and soda. And at 6:55 p.m., he was dead by lethal injection. He had no final words. His ex-wife said to the family of his victims, "I am sorry for the pain he has caused you." Some of the victims' family was outside of the prison. Lisa was there also, and she's now Lisa Nolan. She's married with a daughter of her own and a granddaughter. And I guarantee you she protects her granddaughter. And when he was executed, Lisa said she cried and that she felt a peace come over her. And that, my friends, is the story of Lisa Mcvey and how she miraculously survived a serial killer. There's a movie on TV about this that you can watch. And once again, condolences to each and every one of the family members of the names that I read earlier, because their story also matters. They mattered. Let me know what you guys think of this. My mind is still blown at how she was able to remember all of these little small details. It's just incredible. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Be safe, be well, and I will see you guys in the next video.